so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
Good evening and welcome to the Hoosier Huddle Live IU football chat. It's been a while since we've been doing this, since we've had like 3.5 weeks in between games. So a little refresher on how we do this. I will, go through the game. If you guys have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section and we'll get to them. Other than that, we'll talk about the Rose Bowl. We'll talk a little bit about transfer portal, which opens up the day after the Rose Bowl on January 2nd. It's open for 14 days. So that is going to be a huge, busy time for us as well. And then, we'll break down the game. We'll break down things to do in Pasadena, things like that. We got to see open practice today for a little bit. You guys could ask questions about that. And, we'll give you a couple minutes to get in here. We've got about almost 50 people already. And, it's that week of the year where you don't know what day of the week it is. And then hopefully everybody in the Indiana region or anybody who's affected by the storms tonight got through it okay. I know there was a tornado warning down south. And so send your questions in and we'll get talking about the Rose Bowl here. So happy to see everybody joining us again. So all right, let's start with a little overview of the game. Indiana's playing Indiana's the number one seed in the college football playoff. They're playing in the Rose Bowl, which will be on January 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. There'll be College Game Day is going to be there and all that stuff. The weather forecast is not great. It looks like New Year's Eve will be the worst of the days, but there's still a couple days left to figure out that forecast. Some systems moving in off the ocean a little quicker than anticipated. So it looks like a rainy game day in Pasadena, which if you're traveling and spent a ton of money to go out to Pasadena kind of stinks. You want the California sunshine, the sunset in the San Gabriels and that setting, but the rain does help your Indiana Hoosiers, I believe. First question, if IU doesn't get pressure on Ty Simpson, does that mean a loss for IU? I don't necessarily think it means a loss. I think it means it makes it a lot harder for IU to win this game. If you let Ty Simpson sit back there, get clean looks, and find his talented receivers. These receivers are really talented. I know Ryan Williams has gone through it this year with 10 plus drops. But him and Jeremiah Smith, last year as freshmen were two best wide receivers in the country. And, coming in, he still has big playability. They'll still get him the ball on screens, and he could take a screen pass 80 yards for a touchdown. The guy is no joke. Got Jeremy Bernard as well. So getting pressure on Ty Simpson is key, but I don't know if it's the key. And I think the rain helps IU here. So Ty Simpson does like to roll out and throw the ball. And if it's going to rain as much as the forecast says it is, I think it's around an inch on New Year's Eve and then about a half an inch on New Year's Day. That's going to be a slick track at the Rose Bowl with the natural grass surface and what they do with the grass there. So throwing on the run on a slick surface when you can't get your feet underneath you and a wet ball does not bode well for the quarterback. but they do need to get pressure on him and force him. His throws under pressure are way off. He saw it against Oklahoma. He wasn't accurate and all that much. And he hasn't been total accurate. He's very erratic, and he hasn't been efficient in his passing all year. I mean, you look at the numbers, and I know Alabama Twitter has been all over it. Well, Fernando Mendoza has only thrown this many passes and for this many yards and this many touchdowns. So, if you look at Ty Simpson, he threw 457 passes, completed 293, which is 64.1% for 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. You go to Fernando Mendoza, he has not thrown the ball that much. And yeah, he's probably played a little bit less with sitting fourth quarters and all that stuff. He's only thrown the ball 316 times, and it's completed 226 passes. That's 71.5% for nearly 3,000 yards. He's at 2980 with 33 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So Fernando's a lot more efficient. And I think Fernando plays very well under pressure. He's been pressured all year by defensive lines. He got crushed against Ohio State first play. We saw what he did against Penn State when they brought the house on that final drive. At Iowa, he took a few big shots and made a few big throws. Oregon, he was under pressure. Like, IU's offensive line is good. They were a finalist for the Joe Moore Award, which is the best offensive line in the country. Went to Iowa. But to me, if you could get pressure on Ty Simpson, it makes it a lot easier to win the game. All right, next question. With Alabama not having a run game to speak of, does this bode well for the zone defense style that IU plays? I mean, we'll see. IU is not going to change their defense. They're going to believe in what they've done all year, and they're not going to change something if they don't have to change it. Now, running the ball, if you don't have to send an extra guy on a run blitz and you could stop the run with your front four, that leaves a lot of options in other places as well. It's easier to play zone. You don't have to bring everybody else up. You're not going to get beat over the top on play action and things like that if running the ball is not a threat. That means you don't have to bite on the play action and be a tick slow in the play action game. We'll see. We'll see what they do running the ball and all that stuff. They do have to replace Stephen Daly, but Indiana's defense plays well against the run. They tackle well against the run. They tackle well in all situations. So they'll play man too, especially with D'Angelo Pons on the outside. So, I mean, we'll see. But anytime you can make a team one-dimensional, it helps. So thanks for the question, Ryan. Those are good questions. So you got about 100 and almost 120 people in the chat tonight, which is great to see, especially on a Sunday late at night. I don't know if people are working this week, took this week off. It's kind of that lost week on the calendar between Christmas and New Year's. And I know people are traveling out to Pasadena as well. We'll be going out on Wednesday, so we won't be out there until about 4:30 p.m. local time on New Year's Eve. We'll get to the game, and then I'm flying back about 10 p.m. local time after the game to get back and stuff like that. So shoot some more questions on. Otherwise, we'll get into what is your biggest worry about Alabama? Oh man, there's a bunch. I mean, the biggest worry is that they're super talented. They're one of the top 5 most talented teams in the country. They've underperformed all year. They're starting to get healthy again. But at the same time, what kind of alleviates that worry is They are who they are. They've played 13 games. They're or 14 games. They're 11-3. They they lost the opener to Florida State, which is a million years ago, but they are who they are. They haven't been able to run the ball all year. Ty Simpson has been really good for most of the year. At the end of the year, he's a little banged up. If he's healthy, he plays well. He's back to that October Ty Simpson. It's that's the worry is he's back to that October Ty Simpson, and Ryan Williams figures it out, and Jeremy Bernard is a tough cover for Jamari Sharp and some other guys. Josh Cuevas, the tight end, is an X factor there as well in the passing game. And then you have their true freshman. Let me get his name real quick. Their true freshman is really good, and he's been Latsier Brooks, and then you have Isaiah Horton as well. Like if their skill players make me nervous because IU has they played a lot of skilled teams. They played Oregon, which has a ton of skill. Evan Stewart was out; he's their best wide receiver. You have a lot of skill with Ohio State as well, and they shut down Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith for the most part, and they took out the tight end game. They limited the run game and made them one-dimensional, so that makes it feel a little bit better. But their talent at the skill positions is still really, really good. And they have a really good offensive coach. We all know this. We've seen Kalen DeBoer in the flesh. He came to IU. He's creative on offense, knows how to use the passing game. He's aggressive when he needs to be aggressive. He's creatively aggressive too. We saw it at Washington. They'll run, 4th and 2. They'll run a sweep to the outside. So their skill positions make me nervous. Their defense is okay. But their skill on offense is what makes you nervous. And then, of course, you go to special teams. They always have a guy on special teams and things like that. What kind of makes a difference here between Oklahoma and IU, IU's not going to make the mistakes, or hasn't yet, that Oklahoma made in that game in the first round. Those are the mistakes that IU made against Ohio State last year. Drop punt, the turnovers, punt return for a touchdown, pick 6 right before the half, the unsportsmanlike penalties, missed field goals. All those things that you needed to go right for Oklahoma didn't go right. And they went right in the first game. Even though Alabama had more yards and all that jazz, and the stat sheet was heavily tilted toward the Tide, but it's Indiana plays a cleaner brand of football than Oklahoma. They haven't made those mistakes. Could they make their mistakes in the Rose Bowl? Sure, it's football. It's a weird looking shaped ball. It's going to be wet and rainy. Mistakes could happen, and Kay Womack today at his press conference said it's going to be, who makes the more explosive plays and turnover margin. And that's 99% of football games. It's who makes more explosive plays and who wins the turnover battle. It's who's going to win the game. And this year, IU has won all those battles and has come out 13-0. So it's still a good Alabama team. And they're playing the victim card too. Nobody thought they could be here. Nobody expected us to be here. They're embracing this underdog mentality. So we'll see if that is like fake fuel to pump up a team, which you shouldn't need anything to pump you up for this. We were at practice today, and Hayden Fisher did his pre-stretch speech, we'll call it. It's very inspiring, makes you want to run through a wall. Hey, I'll bleep out most of it, but the gist of it was, hey, we're one of the final 8 teams here. Everybody else who's not playing wants to be in our shoes. So let's make the let's make the best of this opportunity. Let's put in the work today and, make sure that we're still standing after this round. So, it's weird to see how the roles of these teams flipped. Indiana, we're not going to joke around. Like, Indiana was the losingest program in college football history coming into this year. Everybody thought last year was a fluke. Everybody, every game it was, wait till they play Illinois. Well, they beat Illinois by 53. Well, Illinois might not be that good. But wait till they play Iowa. Well, they shouldn't have beaten Iowa. Wait till they play Oregon. Well, Oregon might not be that good. Wait till they play Ohio State. Well, it's kind of a meaningless game. Yeah, they knew they were going to the playoff and all that stuff. And then on the Alabama side, now Indiana's coming in as the favorite. People are picking them to win, win big. There are, and just inside the building, there's confidence. Nobody's talking about how disrespected they feel. And this has been all year. Cignetti has his culture. He's built his culture, and that culture is strong. Now you go to Alabama and they're saying, oh, well, nobody believed it. They're playing the underdog card. So we'll see what that means. Usually when you're playing the underdog game, it means you need a little extra push and motivation. IU doesn't need any extra motivation. You're playing in the Rose Bowl. It is a huge, huge game. I hate every game from now on out is the biggest game in IU football history. Granted that they win. So, you could say that. But the Rose Bowl, it means something to the fan base. And there are people, and I interviewed Andy Graham this last week and wrote it up this week. This fan base has been put through the ringer for decades. And you saw Sig mention it and how he hated it on 60 Minutes. But I don't, maybe he does understand it and he needed to do what he did. But the mental toll that this fan base took from 1968 to 2024 is just a beatdown. And you still have, you always had those 20 or 30,000 fans who always had season tickets, who were always at Memorial Stadium, no matter who the opponent was, what IU's record was, what the weather was, they were there. And there's a lot of people going out to Pasadena like, yeah, we got to go. This was always a bar room kind of like, yeah, we'll go to the Rose Bowl when IU goes. Like, not a serious thing until it actually happened. And now people are, okay, we got to go. We don't know when the next time will be, especially with how the playoff could change and all that. So you just don't know. You could be the best team in the world. You just don't know when you're going to go back to the Rose Bowl. And so I think that's felt in Bloomington as well, and felt through the fans and felt through the players, and they get it. So it's a huge opportunity. This is a huge game. And not just because it's a stop along the college football playoff. It's because it is the Rose Bowl. And IU's Big Ten champions, and they went 13-0. And Andy Graham and we had the conversation. If this was 1980, IU would be the national champion. They went undefeated in their conference. They played an extra game in the Big Ten title game against the number one team, and they won. So, you could claim it and all that stuff, but that's not how it works anymore. You go into the playoff and the ESPN Invitational, and then you go from there. So hopefully it seems like there's going to be a lot of IU fans out there. I got an email from SeatGeek with the breakdown of like where people are buying tickets from. It's like a quarter of them are from Indiana, 12% are from Illinois, and 18% are from California, which has, I think the second largest alumni base for IU. So you'd expect a lot of IU fans to go. And a lot of people I've talked to, and you've seen it on our forums, people are going. So it should be a pro IU crowd. And I don't think the rain is going to keep them away. So we're up to 200 and almost over 230 people tonight. So let me catch my breath, take a drink, send in your questions. We'll get to we got to see practice today. A little bit of practice, about 15, 20 minutes of practice. Nothing earth-shattering, or if we did see anything earth-shattering, could share it anyway. But, you know, it was good to get into Mellencamp, which looks fantastic, by the way, and see guys like the practice today felt like the same thing as spring practice one, or whenever they use pads or whatever. You know, just intensity ratchets up when you have shoulder pads and helmets. But it was the same standard, and I think that's key. It was, you could have told me that this practice happened on March 18th, and it would have been the same thing. You know, you just take out the context of Aiden Fisher's speech, of, you know, being in the quarterfinals, and it could have passed for, in a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way. It could have passed for any other practice that we've been to under Signetti. It was focused, detailed, people going where they need to go. No chit chat, no music, no small talk, in, out of drills. So it's, I don't know what that means going forward, but I could tell you that it's, if you're sailing on a ship, you want things to be as regular and as routine as possible, right? And that's what I think it has been. So send in some more questions and we'll. All right, let's see if anybody's joining us over on the Twitter side. By the way, I hope everybody's holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's are going to be. When are they heading to Pasadena? They're flying out of Indy tomorrow. I think there are 2 flights going out. I don't know what time, but I think it's late morning. And I don't know when the team's actually going to leave Bloomington. There was one bus. One group was leaving around 11, and I don't know. We weren't told exactly what time, but they should. If you're in Pasadena, or in LA, they should be arriving at the hotel around 8:30 local time, which means I'm gonna have to stay up late to get, because we have Nick and Ben out there to get their stuff in. On team arrivals and stuff. But if you're out in LA already, they're doing at their hotel, which I believe is the Intercontinental. Let me double check. Yes, I believe it. Let me check. They've sent so many emails on schedules. It is. Yeah, the Intercontinental is where IU's staying. So they should get there approximately 8:30. We were told today 8:40. But again, it's flights and all that stuff. So if you're out there and you want to see the team arrive at the hotel, go ahead. But I don't think there's any official send-off like they did for the Big Ten championship game. All right, we'll take a few more questions. We'll go as long as we're getting questions. I'm happy to stay up with you all. Otherwise, we'll get into some keys to the game, some matchups to watch. TJ and I are doing our preview podcast tomorrow, and that'll come out. So if you're traveling, we'll have a podcast for you guys to listen to as well. If you want to watch a replay of the show, it will be up on our YouTube channel and then also in the forums on the website. If you haven't checked us out on the website yet, we totally redesigned the site. Spent most of my fall doing that, and it was a giant headache. But I think it looks good, and we're moving forward in the right direction. So, Alabama, Indiana, 4 p.m. on January 1st in the Rose Bowl, and to me, the biggest matchup to watch is Alabama's wide receivers against IU's secondary. And not only that, it's just talent on talent. You have D'Angelo Pons will probably be on Jeremy Bernard or Ryan Williams, who are two very, very good receivers. Isaiah Horton's in there as well. And we'll see what, Jamari Sharp played very well against Ohio State. Amari Farrell and Lou Moore have been awesome at safety this year. Now that, they've gotten past those busts at safety, those communication errors that we saw at the beginning of the year, basically up until the middle of the year. Those have, largely been solved. Devin Boykin's been really good in that rover position. And then somebody who I don't think gets enough credit playing in coverage, who will have a huge role in this game, is Elijah Hardy. Josh Cuevas is a great blocker. He's also kind of the safety blanket at tight end for Ty Simpson. So if you could get Elijah Hardy to cover him, kind of like he covered some guys against Ohio State, and then maybe with Stephen Daly out, maybe Elijah Hardy plays closer to the line and is used as a pass rusher as well. There's just, Brian Haynes talked today, and he got a nice fat extension, and he deserves it. But he's getting paid $3 million for a reason. He's going to get this defense ready to go and replace Daly with a number of guys. Didn't get to see offense versus defense, so you can't get into that. But, the simple, easy solution is you move Kamara back to that spot and you put in Dukeway onto the weak side. Or, you could always move Landino out, or you play a 3-3-5 and you put kind of move Elijah Hardy up to that, stand-up linebacker, rush end position, and things like that. They're going to do all sorts of things. They've had 3.5 weeks to prepare for this game, which is why I wasn't super nervous that Daly was out. If it had been a 1-week turnaround, then you're scrambling. You don't have time to kind of tweak things or play with things or experiment and say, well, maybe this is not going to work, or, hey, we didn't really think of this. Let's try this. Oh, it works. But the secondary against Alabama's wide receivers is my matchup to watch. I'll write more in depth about it on later in the week as we get closer to game day. And then, we'll get to keys to the game. If you have any more questions, please send them in and we'll get to them. And, anything Rose Bowl questions, portal questions. I know there's a lot of smoke surrounding Josh Hoover. There's every quarterback who's entered the portal seems to be tied to IU, which just don't believe everything you read on the internet, especially with Joe Tipton today and On3 doing a kind of a walk that back and a redaction from those guys on some NBA G League guy. We're not even going to get into that. When we do a basketball chat, we'll get into that because I'll share my thoughts on IU basketball. But this is a happy time, so let's talk some football. Keys to the game. Yeah, I mean, it is. I don't need to beat the drum about how bad Indiana's football history is. Just don't. But it is amazing how quickly Sig has turned it around. And this is, you know, we'll take it back to 2023. People there were certain people who were saying fold the program, put everything into basketball. Football's not worth it. And look, we were a football only site from 2013 until last April, when we moved to Rivals for about 3 months. But we always believed that the potential for this football program, and just in the climate of college sports now, you better be good at football. If you're not good at football, the rest of your sports are going to suffer. And all it took was some investment and a hiring. Like, I hate saying IU got lucky with Signetti, because it wasn't luck. Yeah, Pam Whitten does get a lot of credit for it, and lucky is kind of taking credit away from that. But there was a certain set of circumstances that came together where, yeah, you kind of lucked into Kirk Signetti, that he was still available from JMU. You had the right president, you had the right AD for NIL, and you had people who wanted to invest. And at the end of the Tom Allen era, it was the people wanted to invest in football, but they didn't want to do it for him. So I always, until about the Rutgers week, and we started putting together a hot board on the background after the Akron game. But if you've listened to us for a while, with that situation, it was always, I'll believe they'll pay the buyout when I see it. And it wasn't that, oh, they should have kept Tom and stuff like that. It was, I needed proof that they were actually invested in it. It was a lot of money. So that, bringing Sig in and getting that investment, and he just believes so wholeheartedly in his process. And he's a winner. I mean, he's won every place he's gone. This wasn't a win the press conference hire, even though it turned into a winning press conference with the Google Me, I win, the Purdue sucks, but so does Ohio State and Michigan. Like that was icing on the cake. This was, they hired the right guy at the right time, and had the right investment. And now with that investment, he over exceeded expectations from last year. I think everybody would have been happy. Just go 6-6, get to a bowl game, and we'll build from there. And he just shook the world of college football, and we're seeing it. You're seeing coaches, why can't you do this at LSU? Why can't you do this at Penn State? Why is it taking you 11 years to beat Ohio State? It took Kirk Signetti too. Or, hey, it took Kirk Signetti 1 year to take IU to 11 regular season wins in the playoff. So, yeah, it is unbelievable. And it would be unbelievable at most schools, not just IU, because IU has their past and stuff like that, but just how quickly it turned around and how quickly he instilled his culture. And I said it when we saw it talking about practice today. That practice looked exactly like the practice number 1 we saw. Same thing. Nobody was overexcited. Nobody's yelling at each other. It was in and out of drills, in and out of plays. Very efficient. Coaches coaching. Players listening, going through stuff. Just no wasted movements. And it was unbelievable on day 1, because usually it takes a couple times to get something perfected, or at least right in the world. But to see from practice one of Kirk Cignetti to practice whatever number this is, it kind of look the same, that's a lot of credit to those coaches, those players, and that culture that Kirk Cignetti brought in. So good comments there, Roger. They asked the same questions when Knight did it in basketball. How do you win with lesser talent? It takes the same type of player to play for Sig as it did for Knight. Yeah. I mean, scheme. You can have the best scheme in the world, and talent always helps. But here's the thing: when talent's bought in, it's different. I mean, his players are so bought in, and look, they're pretty darn good players too. Carter Smith won Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year. Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman. D'Angelo Pons is going to be an NFL draft pick. Lou Moore should be in the NFL. You have a couple guys. You have a couple guys like Aiden Fisher's really talented. Elijah Hardy's really talented. And then you get guys in like Isaiah Jones, who they came in as a 3-star guy with some talent, and they got developed. But yeah, it's all fun. I had a high school football coach. He was a total jackass, but he did say something that landed with me. We're just ordinary people doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. And that's kind of what IU does. They're just, the G5 All-Stars, a bunch of 3 and maybe some 4-star guys. They're not doing anything crazy, right? Nobody's running a 4.140 or has a 50-inch vertical. They're just doing their things extraordinarily well. Whether it's catching the ball, not fumbling, and no dumb penalty. They are a well-coached team. And I didn't get to watch Knight. Look, I grew up in New York City, didn't become an IU fan until 2002. And it was like growing up, it was St. John's basketball and the Knicks and all that stuff. But yeah, it is all fundamentals. It's when you're good at fundamentals. And he said that in the 60-minute thing. There's no magic here. It's fundamentals. So there is a little bit of magic, I think. But he provides it in the fundamentals. Dave, with the portal question, a lot of JMU players in the portal. I was told that you're saying that were they there when Sig was there? So Sig left after the 2023 season. Bob Chesney has been there for 2 years. Like a guy like Wayne Knight might follow, who's their running back, not Newman or Dennis Nedry. Wayne Knight, the running back Wayne Knight, might follow Bob Chesney out to UCLA. So there are some guys who still have that connection to Sig. And we'll see. They could have also followed him in 2023, maybe. And Brian Haynes said something interesting. Recruiting players, like Sig signs off on everything. If he hasn't seen, and he's dead set on this production over potential. And he said it with Elijah Hardy. Haynes was on Elijah Hardy in high school, like early on. Thought the kid was a stud, gonna be a stud. He got hurt like a sophomore year, missed a year. Sig was like, I just haven't seen enough of him to bring him here. He goes to Navy prep, puts on a show. They bring him to IU. So maybe that's some of the JMU guys where, okay, hey, you've had your time. You've got your production up and go. But you also have to – you're also battling a guy they played for is now going to UCLA too. And he's a pretty darn good coach. I thought he should have been the coach at Penn State. But, they made a good hire with Matt Campbell as well. But he's going out to UCLA. it could be, it's not an automatic that they go to IU, even though they played for SIG. Because Bob Chesney was there the last couple years, and they played for him as well. And he also has a Power 4 Big Ten job. Now it's UCLA and not Indiana, but 2 years ago it would have been flipped. It's UCLA and not Indiana. So who knows? There's also needs. I saw a couple linemen in there as well, guys with 1 year left who might be, have a lineman. You need to have the size and production, all that stuff. But I'm sure SIG knows these guys and see if they're a cultural fit as well. But I don't think it's every JMU guy, but maybe there's a couple JMU guys who come join the fray. But I haven't officially heard anything. But it is something to keep an eye on. There are definitely players that when whatever outlet says, oh, they're in the portal, kind of go, okay, that's somebody. If I was building my team, I would, keep an eye on. But we'll see. But good question, Dave, and I'm glad I could interpret it for you from you. So all good on that. So portal's going to be absolutely madness if it isn't already. January 2nd it opens. So you're looking at IU getting back to Bloomington, win or lose, at like 3 a.m. Yeah, you're all good. We all make typos. Don't hold it against you. I just wanted to make sure I got the question correct. But it's going to be absolutely crazy. So let's get to keys to victory in the Rose Bowl. I'll put this one out again on the site later this week as we get closer to the game. The obvious one that I always joke about is score more points than the other team. It's they beat Ohio State. You just need one more point than the other team to win. But to get more in depth on it, I think the tougher team will win. And I know I'm taking an Alabama viewpoint of this. Alabama's going to have to match Indiana's toughness if they want to win. So whoever's the tougher team is probably going to win. Indiana's got to win the turnover battle. They got to get more explosive plays on offense as well. And they can stay well balanced. IU, they ran the ball against inferior opponents ridiculously well. They went over 300 yards rushing, I think, in 6 of their games. And they were all blowouts where you're running the ball in the second half. And they just dominated up front. Against teams where they kind of had trouble with the defensive front, Iowa, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. They ran the ball well enough to keep people honest. Kalon Black had a big run against Ohio State. Roman Hemby had a couple nice runs to keep them, especially on those first down runs. And they did it okay at Penn State, especially on first down, where you could get into 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 4 and 3rd and 1 and get those. IU's offense is very good at taking what the defense gives them. And that's, I think, going to have to be part of the game plan is, look, if they're going to give E.J. Williams that 7-yard out route every time on first down, we're going to take it. And if it takes us 14 plays to get down for a touchdown, so be it. And then, Maryland's not the same talent as Alabama. It's not even close. But then you could see the adjustments that IU's offense made in that Maryland game where, the opening pass, Maryland clearly watched tape, prepared, jumped the route to Surratt, picked it off. Later in the game, you saw the same Omar Cooper double move, left that same defensive back in the dust for a touchdown. So they make in-game adjustments as good as anybody. And then, the final key of the game for me is don't beat yourself. That's what Oklahoma did. They beat themselves. They got out to a 17-0 lead. And then, they drop a pass that should have been a touchdown for 24-0 lead. And that's probably all she wrote for Alabama then. And it, it was kind of like the Penn State game for IU. IU scores a touchdown off of that interception. Start third quarter, it's probably over. Except they kicked the field goal, kept Penn State in it, and we all know what happened next. It ended up being a phenomenal finish, but a little closer than everybody would have liked. But don't beat yourselves. Oklahoma had the drop pass for touchdown. You had the punt, drop, block, whatever you want to call it, the pick six before halftime. And before you know it, in 8 minutes, they got back into the game. 17-0, and then 17-17 going into halftime. With, I think, Alabama getting the ball coming out of half. You can't make those mistakes. I thought the most important part of that Ohio State win was those kind of middle 8 minutes. After IU kicked the field goal to cut the lead to 10-6, I think Ohio State got the ball back with a little over 2.5 minutes left, maybe 2:52. And then they got the ball after halftime. Indiana didn't let them score. Score there, whether it makes it 17-6 or 13-6, or hell, it could have been 24-6 if things go total opposite way. That I thought turned the game. There are little moments in the game that IU has done a very good job of winning, and they don't beat themselves either. I know they had their issues at Oregon with the false starts and the stemming and all those things. They had a few penalties against Ohio State that were kind of boneheaded, but not really. It was more effort plays, and maybe a little bit of a lack of discipline, like on the Kamara going for a tackle, but he went at the lineman's legs and stuff like that. But there were no frustration penalties. No, okay, Ty Simpson's been killing us all day. We got a shot at him a yard out of bounds and they take it. Oklahoma did that. They got penalized a lot. They gave that game away. And that's what Sig says. The first thing you gotta do is prevent you from losing to yourself. And then you could go beat the other team. And IU does a very good job of not beating themselves. So that's the long-winded version of, IU will raise the victory flag or keep it raised. If they do that, it's the biggest key is don't beat yourself, because that's what Oklahoma did. That's what Auburn did against Alabama. They beat themselves. Who else was a close call? South Carolina fumbled on the last play. Beat themselves. Fumbled on that last drive with the chance to go win in a tie game. Fumbled at their own 33-yard line, and Alabama goes in to win 29-22. Instead of having a chance to kick a game-winning field goal, you give them a ball at their 33-yard line, and you don't have to be superstars to score a touchdown there. But they did. To their credit, they've also set people up to make those mistakes. So it's a very, very good Alabama team. Very, very good. But Indiana is also very, very good. They're number one team for a reason. And it took them a while to get there. You look at the journeys for both teams. I have the road to the Rose Bowl for both teams up on the site as well. But you look, IU beat ODU, which ended up winning 10 games, and dropped in the polls. But Alabama losing to Florida State was still above them. So it took IU a lot to crawl out of that hole. And now they're the unanimous, I think AP unanimous number one team. So people have come around. This isn't just, they're awesome. This is just not like they're the Blue Bloods of the Blue Bloods. We're going to put them at number one. They haven't lost. Yeah, they no. Indiana earned that number one spot. And we'll see what happens on Thursday. But it's going to be It's going to be a really good game, I think. I don't think either team's going to blow each other off the field, but it is, if you're an Indiana fan who wants to change the narrative of college football, you could not have picked a better team to go against. And I talked to Andy about it as well. He called it the SEC-est team of the SEC. And you're going up against the gold standard. It's them and Ohio State are the gold standards of what you want your college football program to be. They play hard. They're well coached. They have talent. We'll debate whether or not they recruit the right way, but there are no rules anymore. You throw that out the window. There are no rules in college sports, at least not enforced. So these are the programs that you want to be and strive to be, and to come full circle and have a chance to beat one of those teams again, because you already beat one of them, to beat them back to back, that'd be pretty awesome. So we'll go about 5 more minutes. Send in your final questions. I'll give final thoughts, and then we could head off to bed. If you're going to work tomorrow, I am sorry. I hope that, in your boredom of the week that doesn't count, you come to the site, check out the forums, have conversations with us on there. You could always watch a replay of the show on our YouTube page as well. We'll put that out there too. And if you're traveling out to Pasadena early, safe travels. Hopefully no delays with the weather on either end. And you guys enjoy your New Year's. So give 1 more minute for questions, and then I'll do final thoughts and get out of here. All right, last call for questions. We got about 430 people. Thank you guys for joining us tonight as well. And then we'll get, where to find us as well at HoosierHuddle.com. We have football, basketball, all these things. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. I got to update the graphics. These are our old graphics. But you subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for a membership at HoosierHuddle.com, follow us on X. All those things help us as well. And then, we'll get back to doing what we do. All right, final thoughts on the game. Indiana, Alabama, January 1st, 4 p.m. at the Rose Bowl. Should be a great game. Should be a great setting despite the weather. I do think the weather helps IU. This is a game where you hope your equipment guy packed the right cleats. And you hope that they pack the backup cleats as well. And I think as a coaching staff is detailed at Signetti's, that won't be a problem. But it should be a slick track. They're expecting over an inch of rain the day before, about half an inch of rain on game day. Of course, that could still change. The rain should help IU. If it becomes a running game, IU has the advantage. Alabama has talented running back, and they have a big offensive line. They just haven't been able to run the ball all year against basically everybody. So I don't see that changing. They are who they are right now. And, Indiana has run the ball well. They've shown to be the tougher team throughout the season on a lot of people, on everybody, even the number one Ohio State. They talked about Oregon being tougher. Indiana tapped them out. Same thing with Illinois. Illinois had a big physical offensive line. Indiana dominated them. The time where Indiana has to play up to opponents' physicality is over. Now they have to match Indiana's physicality. So that'll be interesting to watch. I think seeing how the pass game goes. If it becomes a run-first game, it's whoever's the more efficient passer and hits those big pass plays when everybody's coming up in the run. Could make difference. Fernando's a more efficient passer than Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson is very talented. He can move as well, but he's comfortable throwing on the run. But if it's a slick track with a wet ball, that makes it a little bit more difficult to do that. He also has had games where he just doesn't look good and is under pressure. So I believe Brian Haynes will have it figured out. They're paying him $3 million a year to figure it out. He's had 3 weeks to figure it out. There's a lot of talent on this team. They've been to the college football playoff before. I don't think they're going to be overwhelmed by the moment. Like I said, talking about the open practice today, you could not tell the difference between practice 1 under Sig and this practice. And that to me is a good sign that people have their heads on straight and everything's focused, because the proof is in the pudding. IU's won 24 games in 2 years. So whatever's working down there is working. And then Indiana's secondary has to slow down the wide receivers. They will help if Ryan Williams continues to struggle catching the ball. But Indiana's secondary has to do a good job of covering, giving the defensive line and linebackers enough time to get in and pressure Simpson, which is where, if IU could stop the run with the front four, then you could, have either a linebacker blitz on passing downs, get some pressure that way, or help out in coverage. If you make them one-dimensional and you're not going to have to defend the run with more than 4 guys, you could do that. You could send a guy after the quarterback. You could double Jeremy Bernard. You could double, Isaiah Horton. You could get Josh Cuevas off his game as well. So, if Alabama's as one-dimensional as we think, we'll see. So we'll give TJ and I will give our predictions tomorrow on our podcast. We did an early Rose Bowl podcast as well. That's already up on the site. But guys, thanks for joining me tonight, and safe travels out to Pasadena.